The Bulls are one of the most successful franchises in the NBA to this day. They have won 6 championships in their entire existence, and I'm going to be talking about them today. Before we begin, as always, just if you have any ideas or suggestions, please comment them down below. I'll be taking your suggestions, and maybe you'll be responsible for the next video I make. Anyways, let's get on to the video. The Bulls in their start of the franchise did not do so well, going through many losing seasons, but it didn't take long before they drafted their first superstar, Artis Gilmore. Until the mid-70s, the Bulls were a very dominating team and were very good. But towards the end of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, they started to fall off. But just in no time, in 1984, they got the 3rd overall pick, and they drafted a guy named, I don't know if you heard of him, maybe you have, Michael Jordan? Does that ring a bell? As soon as Michael Jordan came into the league, he was a superstar, averaging 28 points in his rookie season and making the All-Star game. Throughout the next couple seasons, the Bulls continued to do well. The Bulls weren't too good the next 3 years, but they were very good at drafting players. In 1985, they swapped picks and got Charles Oakley, one of the best rebounders ever. And then in 1987, with the 11th pick, they drafted Scottie Pippen. Don't know if you heard of him either. He would be Michael Jordan's co-star throughout their championships in Chicago. In the 1987-88 season, Michael Jordan won his first out of 5 MVPs that he would win while he was in Chicago. That season, the Bulls were very good but fell to the Detroit Pistons. Throughout the rest of the 80s, the Bulls were still very good but fell just short to mostly the Bad Boy Pistons and the Boston Celtics led by Larry Bird. In the 1990 draft, the Bulls drafted Tony Kukoc in the 2nd round. Michael Jordan was beginning to become the best player ever of all time, and Scottie Pippen was becoming one of the greatest sidekicks of all time. In the 1990 to 1991 season, the Bulls went 61-21 with their best franchise record of all time. Michael Jordan won his 2nd MVP, and the Bulls won the championship in 6 games. The next 2 seasons, the Bulls dominated the playoffs and the regular season, having their best franchise records of all time, going 67-15 and 57-25. Michael Jordan would win another MVP in the 1991 to 1992 season, with Scottie Pippen as his co-star. Sadly, in the 1993 to 1994 season, Michael Jordan's father passed away, and he wanted to pursue his father's dreams of joining a Major League Baseball team. In the 93-94 season, Scottie Pippen proved himself as one of the greatest basketball players of all time, going 55-27 even without Michael Jordan. Sadly, they lost in the Eastern semifinals to the Knicks. In the 94-95 season, the Bulls were without Michael Jordan for almost the entire season until the playoffs came around. Sadly, they lost to the Orlando Magic in 6 games in the Eastern Conference semifinals. After that season, the Bulls would have the greatest season in NBA history, as Tony Kukoc was blossoming into a breakout star, and they signed power forward Dennis Rodman, one of the greatest rebounders of all time, in free agency. The 1995 to 1996 season was the greatest of all time. The Bulls went 72-10 and set a new wins record by a wide margin. They, of course, won the championship, beating the Seattle Supersonics in 4 games. The next 2 years seemed to be much of the same. The Bulls the next year went 69-13, and the year after that went 62-20. Both of those years they beat the Jazz in the NBA Finals. After the 1997-1998 season, Jordan officially announced that he was retiring. Now, the Bulls were in rebuild mode. They sent Scottie Pippen off to the Rockets, and they got rid of all of their good players. There was some upside in the 1999 draft, though. They scored the 1st overall pick from having an abysmal 17-65 record, and with the 1st pick they selected Elton Brand. And then with their next 1st-round pick, they selected Ron Artest, or as you might know him, Metta World Peace. The next couple of years, Elton Brand would prove to become a superstar. Then, on 2001 draft day, they decided to be very risky and trade Elton Brand for Tyson Chandler, and they traded Elton Brand to the Clippers. The next couple of years, the Bulls would still prove to be very bad, drafting Kirk Heinrich in the 2003 draft and Jay Williams in the 2002 draft, who both turned out to be mediocre players. In 2004, they had a very good draft when they drafted Ben Gordon with the third overall pick, who would become a great scorer off the bench for them. In 2004, they also exchanged Jackson Vromon for Luol Deng, who would be a crucial part in one of their best teams. In 2006 draft day, the Bulls made one of the worst mistakes on franchise history. From a trade that they did with the New York Knicks, they got the second overall pick and picked LaMarcus Aldridge, but then traded him for Tyrus Thomas. Then, that next year, they had the Knicks pick again, and that was pick overall 9. They drafted Joakim Noah with that pick. Joakim Noah would later become a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. In 2008, the Bulls were still very good, but they managed to score the first overall pick despite very low odds. With that pick, they drafted the hometown boy, Derrick Rose. The next 2 years, the Bulls were mediocre at best, but still were having great drafts. In the 2009 draft, they drafted James Johnson and Taj Gibson with their 2 first-round picks. Finally, after years of great drafting, 2011 was finally the Bulls' year. Derrick Rose blossomed and got his first MVP for his efforts. The Bulls won 62 games, but lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. After this, the Bulls had another great season, and Derrick Rose was playing like an MVP. But then, tragedy would strike. Derrick Rose would go up for an athletic layup, but then miss, and he would badly tear his ACL. After this, Derrick Rose would never be the same, but in the 2011 draft, the Bulls got really lucky and selected with the 30th pick Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler would later become a star for Chicago and win them a bunch of playoff series. After this, Luol Deng fell off and was traded to the Miami Heat. Joakim Noah didn't perform as well as he used to, but Jimmy Butler was still blossoming. In the 2016 offseason, the Bulls were looking to make some moves, so they signed point guard Rajon Rondo and shooting guard Dwyane Wade. The Bulls did not perform up to expectations, and at that offseason, Dwyane Wade was traded, Rajon Rondo left, and Jimmy Butler was traded to the Timberwolves for 2 first-round picks and Zach LaVine. Ever since then, the Bulls have not been very good, going through 20-win seasons left and right. Zach LaVine has been fairly promising, though, putting up over 20 points a game the past 2 seasons. Lauri Markkanen was one of the first-round picks that they got from the Timberwolves, and Chris Dunn has been fairly mediocre. The next 2 years, the Bulls had very good drafts. In the 2018 draft, with the 7th overall pick, they drafted center Wendell Carter Jr., and in the 2019 draft, they drafted point guard Coby White from North Carolina. The Bulls have not been too good this season, going 22-43 and are 11th in the Eastern Conference. Most people judge that their coach Jim Boylen is not doing a great job at coaching the players. The future in Chicago looks fairly bright as they have a great young core that is ready to take them to the next level and possibly win them an NBA championship. Throughout the entire franchise history, the Bulls have had many rich experiences, but also some bad ones. The Bulls have gone through many losing seasons, but also have seen many winning seasons. They've gotten to see the greatest player of all time play for their team, and also a couple of other great players play for them. Some great players that were contributors to the Bulls throughout their time there are Horace Grant, Jerry Sloan, Bob Love, Reggie Theus, Jamal Crawford, and Ron Harper. These players all contributed greatly, and I forgot to mention them in this video. Anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and maybe until the sports come back again, you guys can keep watching. Anyways, just make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.